so much for tuning into the Urban Agenda. Our focus today, what's happening to India's stalled housing projects? How many are still awaiting their completed homes and suffering the financial and mental burden of EMI plus rents? Well, latest prop equity data shows that some projects are getting completed, but the total number of stalled units across India's top housing markets have remained more or less the same since pre-COVID or 2019. Here's the data from prop equity. So total number of projects stalled are 1599, 4.8 lakh units approximately. We have rounded off the figures. 2.2 lakh units out of these are RERA registered. So that's almost 40% plus. 4.1 lakh delayed homes are in tier 1 cities and 70,000 approximately are in tier 2 cities. Now, which are the cities which have the most stalled projects? Well, again, this list of culprits has not changed. Greater Noida, around 70,000 units. Thane has around 54,000 units. Gurugram has about 49,700 units. Noida, about 41,600 units. Mumbai, 36,000 units. Bengaluru, 37,700. And Navi Mumbai, around 24,000. So, imagine between Delhi and Mumbai or Delhi NCR and MMR, you pretty much have the largest number of stalled units. Sameer Jasuja, founder and CEO of Prop Equity, Pratik Kumar, partner in the corporate and commercial practice group at Khetan & Co, and Amit Bhagat, CEO and managing director, ASK Property Fund, are my guests today to figure out how do we solve for this crisis. I'm still going to call it a crisis because despite RERA, despite insolvency laws becoming stronger for the home buyers, the number of units which are stalled and delayed by over 2 years hasn't changed. So Sameer, because the data comes from prop equity, here's my question to you. You know, there are about 2.2 lakh units which are RERA registered post 2017. Some of them are legacy projects which have had to register with RERA, but are there new ones also which have got stalled post 2017, and how has RERA helped, or has it helped?
So Manisha, there are going to be continuously projects that are going to get stalled. The number may come down, but that problem can happen later as well. So that problem will continue for all times to come. It may just get reduced. So RERA's job really is when the project gets stalled and the crime has been committed, that's when RERA really comes in to give its justice or hear the case. And that's why RERA has not been able to help this problem too much. The only way this problem can be solved is by other developers coming in, taking those projects over and redeveloping them or completing them. Swami has done a great job by completing 32,000 odd units over the last 5 years. But since we knew this problem was much larger, the funds required to complete such projects was much more, and the availability was much lesser in terms of the Swami funds total fund, which was 25,000 crores. So that's why this problem has not been solved. It's been solved by roughly about 10%, and still there's a long way to go for the entire problem to get solved.
Only 10% of the problem has got solved, despite the fact that the markets are flushed with capital. This has been one of the biggest or the most booming period for real estate and in general capital across the economies globally and in India. All right, Amit Bhagat, I'm going to come to you. Noida, Greater Noida, these are markets that you're invested in. You've seen them very closely. Amitabh Kant committee report came out with an amnesty program, giving a fair chance to developers in these localities or geographies to resolve issues with the authority or surrender part of their land to pay up their dues to the authorities or bring in a co-developer to complete the projects. What is your sense in terms of how is the traction on ground?
So if I analyze your data, which you have just given, 55% of the problem is legacy, which is pre-RERA, and 45% is RERA registered. And I think these are two kind of projects. One is in MMR, which is predominantly comprising of slum redevelopment, society redevelopment, MHADA redevelopment, and Noida and Greater Noida, which has been the reason for why RERA came at the most opportune time. So if you look at these two problems, one is that legacy, when the money has been diverted from one project and now it cannot come back, either because developer has become bankrupt, insolvent, or not in a financial state to bring back money, the end user continues to suffer because of the stakeholders, which are three, and they are not sitting together to solve the problem. So if you look at Noida, for example, authority, lender, and home buyer, all three are impacted. Home buyers cannot be penalized more. They have waited long enough. Home buyers are also mid-income end users. Most of them are first-time home buyers, and they have waited for almost a decade. Authority and lenders and home buyers should sit together to find a solution, and that should be enforced very quickly. Unfortunately, whatever committee you are referring to has taken almost half a decade to come, and it has not seen any fruits of completion, because most of the developers, because the legacy issues, have not opted for the scheme. Some problems cannot be solved at all.
Are you saying that some of these projects will never see the light of day, Amit Bhagat?
No,
no resolution for them?
If there is a government intervention, like in Amrapali case, when NBCC stepped in, the problems were solved. In recent one of the cases, I don't want to name them, but I saw a lender stepping in, again NBCC saying completing the project. So I think the solution lies with the government, and they have to actively work with lenders, and both of them have to take a haircut in the interest of the home buyers and complete the projects.
Well, part of it, Amit, was in that shape when they said, they have to have an amnesty scheme, waive off the interest. And of course, I must say the Greater Noida Authority and Noida Authority had become quite unreasonable in levying very, very high interest. But the point taken, it's a very important point made, and I think that's the message which needs to come out, that the government has to probably push the lenders to take a haircut, or as it's done in Swami Fund, where it said, look, nobody's rights supersede the fund's rights of the new investors who are bringing in the money. The project completion has to be number one priority. Okay, Prateek, I'm going to come to you, because you and Anurag worked on the other thing which happened because of JP, which still is one of the largest projects which are incomplete, JP Infratech, which is about 16,000 units. Now, even the Amitabh Kant committee report says that don't go to IBC. Go to IBC only as a last resort. Don't drag a developer to insolvency at all, or NCLT. The results have not been very good. What is your sense on that? What are figures saying? What would you recommend?
See, IBC, of course, is the last resort. As the name suggests, the builders unable to complete projects, and it's eventually you are looking for a resolution. Now, the challenge that comes before insolvency courts is, because there are so many stakeholders, and at least home buyers, while they've been classified as financial creditors, they have so many varied demands. Somebody wants possession, somebody wants delayed interest. So all those interests can't be aligned. And which is why reaching IBC, NCLT benches are flooded with applications, and which in turn leads to delay. So at least from my end, the solution that I see is, pre-IBC, there should be some sort of a viability study of the project, depending on whether it is capable of being resolved through IBC or not. Currently, if you take all projects to IBC, because of the lack of benches, the bench strength being low, not having adequate data being shared between the builder and the resolution professional, there are new issues that keep cropping up. So that can't be the one solution for this. But eventually, if you end up in insolvency, there also you need to have specialized benches dealing with these issues. If you put it as run-of-the-mill NCLT issues, they're not going to get resolved that quickly.
Amit Bhagat, I'm going to toss back to you, because you said lenders should also be taking a haircut, right? But I mean, you are one of the lenders, right? You are operating in that space. So two questions. If a project is viable, would you be willing to take a haircut? That's number one. Number two, have you seen any dramatic change in what you call in North India, and we are talking about most of the projects stuck in North India, fitrat mein koi badlav aaya hai? Has the basic ethos of the developer changed? Do you see that he's more trustworthy now?
No, I think, I firmly believe that the DNA cannot be changed, and it will be very difficult to see that somebody's DNA has changed. One thing which I feel and I see a solution today is, because all financial creditors, lenders will definitely go to IBC, because that is the only tool available to them for recovery of their money. What happens is, the moment it is admitted, there should be a mediation process for 40 days, 45 days, between authority, developer, lender, and home buyer's representative. And if this is followed, unfortunately what happens, authority never comes. And judicial pronouncements have come over the last 1 decade, where I think the recent one, which is I think last year, where authority has been pronounced as a secured creditor. Now these are evolving. Nothing is permanent from day one, where a solution can be worked out in defined timeline, because everything is evolving. So I think now going forward, if all stakeholders give a priority to the home buyer, which should be a priority, because if you look at it, you are spoiling 3 generations of that household. Yeah. He's a mid-income. He is not able to live peacefully. His kids cannot get the desired optimum education because he's short of funds. He cannot take care of his elders. So priority should be home buyers. But for that, proactively, authority, lender, developer should come together with a home buyer's representative, go through this mediation process of 45 to 60 days before the COC is constituted and the action starts. And you will quickly find a solution. If authority is being willing to be treated at par with financial creditors in terms of their dues, because the fault lies on their part equally. They have not monitored the project. They have given free hand to the developer not to pay dues for a very long time. So they are equally at fault.
I would agree, but authority is never held responsible. Samir Jasoja, home buyers always been the last priority. Somehow in India, we have not been able to change that. This is a unique market where home buyer pays for everything from day one, right? With even the ground not broken, the home buyer has to pay up a booking amount and then 10%, and by the time the structure is up, he's paid up 90%, even though most projects do get delayed after the structure is up because the finishing takes a very long time. What does one do? I mean, how do you change the DNA of this industry? You've been there for so long tracking data.
Yeah, Manisha, and I wanted to add to what Amit Bhagat sir said, that, I think there is a solution, and this solution is very much similar to what I'd go to Saudi Arabia and what MBS did with the other princes. He bought them in a hotel and got them to agree to shell out the dollars that Saudi Arabia needed. Similarly, I think, fortunately for India, in the last 3 years, real estate prices have almost doubled, especially in MMR and NCR. So those projects have actually become viable. But like Amit ji was saying, that the DNA has not changed, and that DNA has to be forcibly changed in those stalled projects, where the developer has to be made to sit down, sign on the papers, hand over the project to a contractor with the buyer and the lender, and you will see amazing solutions come up.
Prateek, very quickly, how can you force the developer to come on the table? Legally, what are the loopholes which need to be plugged, or do you just think if Finance Ministry wakes up and says, everyone get on the table, because we do have our Amitabh Kant committee report, but really not much has moved since then. How do we get this to happen, what Samir and Amit have just said?
So I think they're spot on this. The builder's support is needed because he knows the project. The only way we can do that is through court intervention. So and there are multiple cases that have happened on this concept of reverse CIRP that's been brought about, where the builder is asked to complete the project, but under the supervision of the court. And there are instances where Supreme Court is monitoring the projects that are on, and there are the NCLT and the NCLAT that is monitoring. So constant monitoring and accountability. So the builders can't be given a free hand where they run riot, they siphon off money from the projects, but regular periodic update reports being filed in courts, the progress reports being given. I think that's one way to stem this problem.
Projects have become viable because the market cycle has improved dramatically. Prices have gone up, and now you are dealing with a new beast, which is the developers don't want to, even they don't want to build, but they also don't want to let the project to go to anybody else. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about the solutions on how you as a home buyer can be more vigilant, and how financial institutions like the ones that ASK heads can also bring in some more discipline. One can hear loud and upbeat drum rolls for all-time high housing market sales in India, but what's holding back over 4.8 lakh delayed units across India, leaving home buyers waiting for a place to call home? Sameer Jasuja, what can the home buyers do by themselves? I know you have a new product called Prop Alert, but how does it help? Can you explain it to us?
Yeah. So, after seeing this problem and after reporting these figures to the finance minister, who then set up the Swami Fund, because we're the only company in India which is actually tracking on the ground construction progress of every project that gets launched. We have over 300 civil engineers across 44 cities who go to every project on behalf of the banks and on behalf of other financial institutions to check whether construction activity and construction progress is happening as per plan, and if it is slowing down, then why it is slowing down. In addition to that, we track 57,000 developers' progress and their track record. Now, why that is important also, besides checking the construction on the ground, is let's look at the case of Amarpali. They actually could execute only 3,000 projects in, say, 3 years, but they sold 30,000 to be delivered in the next 5 years. Naturally, even if they had the money, they didn't have the execution capability. So we are trying to come out with a product. We come out with a product for the consumers, where not only you can track through us the construction on the ground as it happens. We send alerts to him if the construction is slowing down or construction is stalling, so that he can take the necessary steps to exit the project. Many people don't know where the project is stalling because the broker is incentivized by the developer, so he will never tell you the truth because he sold you the project. The developer will never come out with the truth.
Sameer, it's not that easy even for a home buyer to exit. But yeah, he is not going to be caught napping, is what you're saying.
He won't
Very
be caught
quickly,
napping.
I have.
He can take the necessary steps first, and because the market is opaque and not that transparent.
Amit, so it's even despite the fact that private equity funds they have a close eye on the project. It's not as if you all don't get caught in a incomplete project with a developer whose intentions are not clear. How will you prevent it, and how do you think that Prop Alert is a good service?
So I think to be fair to the developers who have delivered in the past and may still get stuck, look at the market conditions. I think 2017 is to real estate market what 1991-92 was to equity. Our regulation came 25 years late. And that is why I firmly believe that it is a beginning of a real estate journey which will last for a decade or more. Second is, I think market has got re-rated. Noida and Gurgaon prices have doubled by more than 100%. So if you can't find a solution in this, you can never find a solution. And now there are agencies like Prop Equity, Prop Alert, where the data is available. So it is no more completely a black box. The regulation is the law has also evolved. There are judicial pronouncements. I think what we need is a proactive approach now, with the market being re-rated. Lenders are always vigilant because they have an escrow mechanism, they have the security. But Noida was a unique case, like slums of Mumbai, where the enforcement of the security was not possible because the land was not paid for. It was a flawed system where you have given them right to sell without they owning land and paying for the land. And so was the case in slums, where unless until you complete the slum development, you are not allowed to sell. And if you sell, you can't get a completion certificate. So the policies were flawed. And today, with the market getting re-rated, home buyer is willing to accept the house. Quality will definitely remain a suspect even now when it is completed because of the various agencies which will get involved at the last moment. But solution is possible if all the stakeholders come together and sit together and they are determined.
And there is a legal enforcement of it, and the government decides, every state government decides that this is their priority. Well, elections are up in many of the state governments, but what I'm hearing from all three of you is that there's been an evolution, but it is now or never. You have to resolve them in a boom period, because it is a cyclical industry. When it goes down, it will be a much harder problem to resolve. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me and making time for this. And we are closing this chapter of the Urban Agenda with the hope that everyone from the Finance Ministry to industry bodies and the legal system and home buyers join forces to untangle this crisis of unfinished homes in India.